Hey, Cub fans! Thanks for joining us here on Cubs 24/7, where Randy talks Cubs. I recently saw a post, found it interesting. It ended up sending me down a pretty significant rabbit hole, and I had a lot of questions and kept asking myself more and then digging for the answer. And I came up with quite a bit, and after I got back up out of the rabbit hole, I made the decision I'm going to do a piece on it. I think you guys will kind of enjoy it. It may be a little long, but I don't know, pause it, come back next time, whatever you want to do. But I just find it interesting, and it has to do with the 300 hitter. Is the 300 hitter is like it's like a phone booth. You just don't see them very often. I saw a guy recently carrying a suitcase instead of the roller bag. I thought I don't see that. A complete game. You don't see those very often. I think the 300 hitter is going that way. So here's what the post read. It had the number of qualified hitters who had hit 300 in the National League from the year 2000 to the year 2023. In 2000, we had 27 of them. In 2023, we only had 5. In fact, in 2022, there was only 3 of them. So in 2022, the 3 were Jeff McNeil, Freddie Freeman, and Paul Goldschmidt. Last year in 2023, we had 5: Louis Arise, Ron Acuna Jr., Frederick Freeman, Cody Bellinger, and Mookie Betts. So what happened? Well, I'm going to walk us through it. Before I do that, let's talk qualified hitters, because Cubs only had 5 qualified hitters. What that means is, in order to be eligible for an award that has to do with average, like batting average, you have to have a minimum amount of plate appearances. The number is 502. The formula to create that is 3.1 times the scheduled number of games. So 162 game schedule, 3.1 comes out to 502.2. So that's all a qualified hitter means. Well, as Cub guys, we only had 5 Cubs that even had the minimum amount of plate appearances required. So qualified hitters for 2000, there was 27 of them who hit 300 in the National League. That number, as we go down 23 years, continues to slide, but it looks like a stock market ticker where it pops up and then comes back down, pops up, goes back down. But over the course of 23 years, there's an 81% reduction. So if you had stock in 300 hitters, you've lost 81% of your money over the last 23 years. So 27 in 2000, 26 in 01, 16 in 02, 21 in 03, 19 in 4, 15 in 05, 17 in 06, 18 in 07, 14 in 08, 17 in 09, and 11 in 10. So it dropped just in that first decade significantly. In 2011, we had 13, in 12, 14. In 2013, back to 12. In 2014, 7. That's the first time it hit single digits. In 2015, 11. 2016, 13, 2017, 14, 2018, 8, 2019, 9, 2021, 8, before it dropped to 3 in 2022, and 5 in 2023. So that's kind of how it happened. I just read this post. That's all it was. I'm like, my God, and you kind of know, right? You go, yeah, we're not hitting 300 like we used to. So then I just asked myself some questions. So as far as the Cubs are concerned, during that time period, how many players did we have that hit 300? So I'll go through the list for you, but give you a chance to sort of think about it. We had Bellinger hit 307 last year, and he's the first Cub to do it since 2018. So that's 5 years between 300 hitters for the Cubs. That was Ben Zobrist. Ben hit 305 in 2012. Before that, Ben hit 305 in 2018. In 2011, 7 years prior, we had 2 guys. We had Starlin Castro hit 307 and Aramis Ramirez hit 306. The year before that, in 2010, Starlin did it again. He hit an even 300. The year before that, in 2009, we had Derek Lee hit 306. The year before that, here's a name that I hadn't thought of for a long time, And now that I see it, I remember him doing that, was Ryan Terrio, the Riot, hit 307 in 08. Derek Lee hit 317 in 07, and Aramis hit 310 the same year. Derek Lee in 05 hit 335. Aramis the same year hit 302. Aramis did it again in 04. He hit 318. Aramis was really good. So what is that? That's 4 or 5 times that Aramis has hit 300 with the Cubs. And he's really – I actually did a video on him. If you haven't seen the video, go ahead and check it out. Aramis Ramirez's numbers are very similar to Santos in a lot of ways. He was really good, and he obviously is really good. The Cubs are he's a 2024 Cubs Hall of Fame inductee. So, but Aramis is really good. If you're not familiar, then go ahead and check that video out. I got a lot of stats on Aramis. In 03, Mark Grudzielanek hit 314. And then in 01, Sammy hit 328, and again in 2000, Sammy hit 320. So that's a list of the Cubs that have hit 300 over the course of the last 23 years. And I go kind of the other way. There's a lot of really good players that aren't on that list. So hitting 300, how special is that at this point? I'm not really sure. So then I thought, well, I want to know more. So let's go all the way back in history with the Cubs and see who did it. Here's some things that I learned. We do have a guy that hit over 400. We had one guy. His name is Frankie Barnes. Frankie hit 429 in 1876. I don't know if that means anything to you or not, but I know it. Now you get to know it. So the first thing I did is I just wanted to go, okay, qualified hitters who hit over 350. That was the question I asked. Here's the answer. We have 28 seasons, or 28 people. We had some that did it more, but 28 total seasons of a guy hitting 350 or more, and it happened between 1876 and 1945. So since 1945, that we haven't had anybody hit over 350. So I ran the next one. I went, okay, 340 and above. Turns out we had 12 of them between 1876 and 1929. So there was 12 of them that did that between 1876 and 1929. Then from 1929 to 1971, before it happened again, Glenn Beckert hit 342 in 1971. So what is that, like 40-some years between 340 or above hitters when Glenn Beckert did it in 1971. Okay, let's do the next one. 330 or above, we have 22 hitters that did that. And with the exception of 4 guys, that all happened between 1876 and 1937. Here they are. Mark Grace hit 331 in 1996. I got to do a piece on Gracie. Did you know that he had the most hits of any player in the 90s? Like Gwynn? No. Boggs? No. It was Grace. I got to do a piece on him. I'll get to it soon. Billy Williams hit 333 in 1972. Derek Lee hit 335 in 05. And Bill Madlock hit 339 in 1976. So there's 4 guys that hit 330 or above, but take them out, and then the rest of them are between 1876 and 1937. I know. Normally when I do stats, it's 1950 or more. I sort of start with when Ernie Banks was really good from, in that mid-50s. But we're just talking what the numbers show. So that's kind of where we are in Cub history, players hitting 300 high in mid to high 300s. So my question is, where are we headed? Right? I mean, what is it? Are we gonna? Well, if you look at the trend, at some point we're not gonna have any 300 hitters, right? Is the 300 average is it gone? Is it on its way out for good? I'm not really sure, but I'm not all that happy about it. I miss the 300 hitter. In fact, I miss manufactured runs, right? It's like, well, I miss stealing bases. I miss a guy hitting the other way to move a runner over, like leadoff man walks, steal second, next guy hits a ground ball the opposite way to move him to third, and then guy gets the ball in the air, hits a sacrifice fly to score a run, a manufactured run. I don't know. I miss it. I get it's much easier to hit a home run or quicker, but I really do miss the manufactured run. Guys hitting the other way. I miss hitting runs. I miss pitch outs. I got to tell you, I had missed sacrifice bunts too. I mean, it was just such a part of the small ball game that was the combination of it. I miss a two-strike approach. Bellinger, you see some stats on what Bellinger did with 2 strikes last year compared to the prior years, and he adjusted. He made a 2-strike approach. He gave up some slug, but I'm okay with a guy giving up some slug for a 2-strike approach. I miss a guy taking a pitch to maybe let a guy steal. Here's what I miss: making a pitcher work. How often are we seeing a guy in the on-deck circle watch the guy ahead of him walk on 4 pitches, walks into the box and swings at the first one? Take a strike, man. Make the guy work. So to me, the game is just the 300 hitter. The game has changed to a point where it might be going away, right? So my question is why? Well, I don't know. I'm just a fan too. I'm just like you guys. I don't know. But here's my thoughts on it. I think pitchers are really good now. They're like machines. I mean, these pitchers are nasty. Back when everybody was hitting 300, it was before the bullpen was nastier than your starter. And the bullpen used to be a weak group of people. And so 2 things happened. If you got into the bullpen, you were kind of hitting BP now, but the starter was good, but you got to see the starters 3 or 4 times. So I think if you go as a hitter, I'm not going to get to see a starter that 4th time, and they're going to bring somebody in from the pen that is not only nasty, but he's probably a specialist, and he's designed and geared to get me out specifically. So just a theory. I could be wrong. I don't know anything. I just watch the game and have thoughts. Next thing is, I think chicks dig the long ball, and so do I think GMs. I think players started getting paid for home runs. So slug gets paid, run production gets paid. And I'm not saying it shouldn't. And that's the other thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it shouldn't. I'm just pointing out the transition. The idea of how we tolerate in the game as fans, well, maybe not some of us, the K rate that we see, the guys that get at bats and they strike out as much as they do. I just think it's interesting that we've got to the point where we tolerate that. In fact, I came up with I was on the rabbit hole. So I wanted to go further. Here's what I found. This is a stat that really blew my mind, but it makes sense with everything else we're talking about. And it has to do with hitters who had at least 3 at-bats in the course of a game, right? So here's this group of players. They get at least 3 at-bats in a course of a game. How often do they strike out 3 times? It has to do with how many games do they do it. In 1983, a player's average was 68 games per time they struck out 3 times. So they played in 68 games that they had 3 or more plate appearances. And in that time, they only struck out 3 times the one time in the 68 games. 10 years later, it went from 68 games to 53 games. 10 years later, 03, it went from 53 to 42 games. And in 13, it went from 42 games to 27 games. And then in 2023, it's down to 20 games. So in 1983, it took 68 games for a player to strike out 3 times in games that he had 3 or more plate appearances. And now it's down to 20 games. Yeah, it really blows my mind. Next thing is the analytics, right? Getting the ball in the air, even for speed guys, it's. I guess the analytics say you got to hit the ball in the air. I guess it's probably true, but even the speed guys don't slap and go. They don't do it. Finding a hole, hitting them where they ain't doesn't seem to be a thing. It's hit it over them, and that has to be part of it. Did the shift have anything to do with it? I've lost track of how long the shift was in play, but did the shift cause hitters to have to hit it on the line? I don't know. The shift was in an era, coincidentally, the same era when we see the strikeout rates, grow. At the same time, the averages come down. So I don't know. The question I have is where are we headed? Is it going to continue? And there's an expression I heard years ago that scarcity creates value. It's like, so if you don't have a closer, for example, then getting a closer, the value of that is really significant. If you don't have 300 hitters, does that at some point create a higher value for that 300 hitter? So I don't know. I just found it really interesting, some of the statistics that I came across on this, and I just wanted to share them with you. I thought it'd be fun. So hope you enjoyed it. Appreciate you tuning in to Cubs 24/7, where Randy talks Cubs, and I appreciate you hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. And next time I go down a rabbit hole, I'll go ahead and take some notes on it and share it with you, as long as I think it's entertaining. Hope you guys like this one. Go Cubs, go.